What's up and welcome back to another video. My name is Miles Away and today I'm really excited to check out the brand new MAKO R1 MKII reverb from Walrus Audio. So a few weeks back, Walrus Audio sent me their brand new MAKO reverb pedal Mark II to check out, and one of the things that really stood out to me that I wanted to talk about, besides the new algorithms and the build quality, the screen, the new chip, is actually that they're doing something that is really cool that I wish more companies would do in the music gear space. Walrus Audio is basically releasing a brand new pedal here with 6 completely rebuilt algorithms, but they're giving all of those algorithms for free to people who own the MAKO R1 reverb. The same thing applies if you have their ACS1 pedal, their M1 pedal, and their D1 pedal, which is so cool. I think there would have been a temptation for a lot of companies to charge this as a brand new pedal release with all new algorithms and basically say tough luck for people who bought the Mark I, but I'm really happy to say that if you own a Mark I of any of the MAKO pedals, you can go to Walrus Audio's website and download all of the new algorithms and features of the Mark II for free. Obviously the caveat being that the Mark IIs have the screen, so for some of the menu diving features, you will need to use a web editor app or MIDI control to access them because the Mark I pedals don't have a screen, but how cool is that? Now again, full transparency, I've had a great relationship with Walrus for a while, so this is not really gonna be a review or anything like that. They sent me the pedal free of charge, but let's dive in and learn how it works and go through the algorithms because I think there's some really cool ones here that sound great on synths. So starting off, we have our dry sound on the Dave Smith Prophet Rev 2, which sounds like this. Really basic sound, but it's being controlled in poly aftertouch mode by the Lumi keys, which is cool. And let's go ahead and enable the first program, which is Spring. So all of these algorithms, like I mentioned, were built from the ground up again, and I really do feel like there was a big improvement over the first MAKO R1 algorithms. The Spring is kind of your classic, drippy, probably more useful for guitars in my humble opinion. So let's move on to check out the controls on the second one, which is going to be Hall. Now that's more of a classic synthesizer reverb right there. Now the Hall program is really going for the acoustics of a true kind of large live sound space, and the higher you go with the decay, the more amazing it sounds. Cool, so some really cool controls that you get on every algorithm. The size, which is gonna basically allow you to almost get into like Walrus slower territory by going to 10, makes it a bit more lo-fi and grainy. And then all the way to the left, a little bit more hi-fi, but a little bit brighter and a little bit shorter and smaller of a size of a room. So really cool that you get the controls. Let's put that back in the middle here. And then what you'll notice is that these 3 encoders are actually push button encoders and they allow you to control this really lovely screen. So we actually get 3 different EQ controls, which is great. So we get our low, can boost the bass or have nothing. Our high Go crazy here. Really bright, right? Let's bring those back to dead center or close enough to dead center. The screen is really, really nice and lightning fast to get around. I know I'm covering it here a little bit, but yeah. And then the final EQ is really interesting. It's this feedback EQ. So what that's doing is it's basically two specialized filters, one low pass filter and one high pass filter, that as the reverb feeds back and goes on and on, the filter will really naturally start to fade away the repeats. If I turn that off, you can hear it makes a huge difference. I really like this feedback EQ. Right? Kind of really low. And then as we bring this out, it naturally fades away. Really, really cool. The other side controls too are quite useful as well. And I think this is the first thing I'll give praise to for this reverb, is that I really like that they just have the same set of useful controls for all the reverb algorithms. And you don't have to worry about like, oh, one reverb can do diffusion, one reverb can't. So anyways, modulation is on this side, most important thing. So we've got a mod rate and depth. Let's go crank the depth and we can check out the rate. Can hear that? Really nice. Let's go ahead and turn down. No modulation. Maximum modulation. Much more natural. I love modulated reverb, and this is no exception. And again, you can do this on all the algorithms, which is great. Here is another really cool feature. So let's make it really crazy. Let's max out our decay and make our mix pretty loud. And what you'll notice is when we have these really ambient reverbs like this, it can be a little bit messy, right? But that's where the duck and swell feature comes in. So if I crank duck as we play, it's actually going to sidechain to itself. Just so unbelievably useful. If you ever want to do really ambient sounds like that, that's an absolutely fantastic feature. And then a little bit less useful for synths, but still cool. I think this is honestly a bit more of a guitar feature here, but the swell side of this is kind of the opposite, where as you press it, it's going to swell in. It's actually pretty nice. You know, if you do short staccato stuff, and then let's bring that back to duck. We'll go for a nice kind of 6 out of 8 duck there. And then finally, the diffusion is just lovely that we get this control on every single algorithm, because diffusion is essentially going to smear the different delay taps that are making up a lot of these algorithms. So with no diffusion, you can kind of hear the reverb is a little bit grainy and a little bit like less defined and a little bit less smooth. And then as we bring up diffusion, it really just turns into that really nice, smooth cloud of reverb. Now, you might think, why would I ever use no diffusion? No diffusion reverbs are actually some of my favorite reverbs. So if you know the Strymon Cloud, that's a usually very low diffusion reverb. You get these really great grainy sounds that work great on synths. Beautiful. In fact, my favorite algorithm on this pedal actually makes use of diffusion really well, which we'll get to. So yeah, those are most of the controls. To be honest, I'm not going to go through absolutely everything. There's like global settings and different presets, which are great. But really, this pedal is what you see is what you get. But the great thing about it is that the controls are equivalent between all the algorithms. So if we want, for example, to go to the next one, plate, it's going to save all our settings for our EQ, our feedback, everything like that, our modulation. So let's go ahead and we are going to go and add in some diffusion on this plate, and we'll play around with the plate. It's it's pretty quick to jump around the pedal, right? Like, let's turn up the modulation. Turn down the low end a little bit on this one. Very beautiful. I'm gonna move on to the next algorithm here because we've got a couple to go through, but this next one is a big effing reverb. That's literally what it's called, BFR. And this is like your classic ambient for days reverb. This is a perfect place to show you the freeze feature. So if we make the decay a little bit more reasonable, we can actually freeze the reverb. But the pedal is powerful enough that we can actually change algorithms here and play over our frozen reverb. I've never seen a pedal do that before other than maybe a dual reverb. Like, that's so sick. Now let's bring up our decay here. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds pretty fantastic. Let's move on to the next one here. So after BFR, I mentioned there's one of my favorite algorithms on here that uses diffusion really interestingly. That is refract. And essentially what refract is a charming glitch-like texture hovering over largely diffused reverbs. It's almost like, if you know pedals like Microcosm or Walrus Fable, it's really similar to that, where it's halfway in between a granular delay and a reverb. Enough talking, let's hear it. Change the diffusion here, we'll make it more grainy. Right? That's what I was talking about with diffusion. This algorithm, especially when you do low diffusion, sounds magical. What I'm gonna do here though is actually change the feedback EQ a bit. I want this to hover longer. Cool, and then we can just turn down the low a little bit. Turn down the high a little bit. See, it's pretty fast to jump around the pedal, right? Yeah, that is easily my favorite of the algorithms for sure. That to me is right there, just like a winner, and I'll definitely be using that. Okay, one last algorithm. Let's go ahead and check out Air. Now Air is a pretty versatile algorithm. You would think on the surface it's going to be the shimmer algorithm because it says shimmer, but you actually can turn off the shimmer, which is great, and just use it as a really nice like synthy, classic airy reverb, and then gently mix in the shimmer and play with the EQ settings. Let's turn down my filter a bit. And we can turn up that amazing feedback EQ. Again, this is a winner on almost all the algorithms. You crank this and it just sounds so natural. Absolutely beautiful, right? And you know what? Let's jump back to the very beginning to spring because I kind of jumped over that one just because I wanted to show controls somewhere else. So let's wrap up with some demos of the spring because it can actually sound pretty cool when you use it not like a real spring. When we crank the decay, we do some weird stuff with diffusion and feedback, and let's listen. Not bad, right? Well, that is where I'm gonna leave this demo, and let's jump to my final thoughts. All right, well, hopefully you enjoyed that walkthrough of the algorithms and you enjoyed some of the ambient sounds you heard. So I'll keep my pros and cons pretty short here. I think pros, again, we've already talked about it. It's just super awesome that if you own a Mark I, you can get these way better algorithms for free. The other pro I will say is that Walrus, by now, we know they really kill it with these ambient reverbs. I think that as soon as you crank the decay on the MAKO Mark II, it just sounds beautiful on all the algorithms. I think especially the Hall is excellent, and I think that the Hall algorithm, if you like Hall reverbs, this is one of the best ones I've tried. The plate and the spring are solid, but the Hall really, for me, of those three classic ones, is the big standout here. Besides that, the refract algorithm is just fantastic. I think the refract algorithm alone is, if you like that algorithm, like that's an awesome one. If you're a fan of pedals like Microcosm, you're gonna love this pedal for those long, lush tails. For the other things that I really like that the chip is powerful enough now to actually sustain or latch the reverb and freeze it and then change to a new algorithm or change features. As for the cons, there's really only one that I can think of, and that is the elephant in the room, the price, considering that for a little bit more money, you're gonna be getting into big box, do-it-all reverb pedals, and then for a little bit less money, you're getting most of the really specialized pedals like Slower from Walrus, for example. But I think where this sits is that if you want something like Slower, where it's gonna crush it with ambient reverb, but you want a little bit more versatility, Slower can't do spring, Hall plate, that kind of thing, it can only do the ambient stuff, then you're gonna be really happy with this. It does sound really great. But that's it for me today. Thanks as always to Walrus for sending over the pedals for me to check out, and thanks to you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I will see you in the next video.